On today's show, 3 questions. Number 1, what's happening at the Fed? Number 2, when are they going to cut rates? And number 3, are dentists ready to manage a business? Let's go.
Consult an advisor or conduct your own due diligence when making financial decisions. General principles discussed during this program do not constitute personal advice. This program is furnished by Dentist Advisors, a registered investment advisor.
Welcome to Dentist Money's 2 cents, where we help dentists navigate all the noise. I'm Matt.
And I'm Rabih.
Yeah, you are. Why are you smirking at me, Rabih?
I love the energy with the second question.
When
are they going to cut rates?
When are they going to cut the rates? Rabih, this show today is sponsored by caffeine. Because I just need it. I need a lot of it. I hesitate to tell you this, Rabih, because I'm on a quest to get you to have kids. But all the parents out there are going to know this. You just go through these phases with kids, and you have babies, you don't sleep well, and then you think you get out of that, and then there's always like you think you're out of the woods with kids, and then it's like, oh nope, something's coming back to get you. And right now we're in the wetting the bed phase with my son. He's struggling with this, and so I feel like I have a baby again, where I'm up I'm up all the time helping him. So today's show is sponsored by caffeine, and so just all sorts of it. I've been between work and kids, I need it. But excited to jump in. Although, are we excited, Rabih? This is kind of a sad show for you as we jump into this first topic. Or somewhat sad. It was going to be really sad. Now it's only half sad,
right?
About the Fed.
I was making the joke at the office that I'm going to watch this supposedly final press conference for Jerome Powell, the current chair of the Federal Reserve.
We were going to have you dress in black and bring some flowers. Yeah.
I was thinking more of like a blanket and a jar of ice cream. But yeah, we can go old funeral mode.
You said Nutella, by the way.
Nutella ice cream. Why not,
Yeah.
And I thought like this was going to be the last press conference where he talks about his legacy and kind of hands down the torch for the next administration. This was the last meeting because in May is when the term ends, but the Fed is not going to meet until April 29th. So in a sense, that was supposed to be the last one. However,
this is like the senior year of high school.
Yeah.
Or college, where it's like, yeah, technically I've got like a month left, but like, do you really?
100%. 100%. So, what happened is that politics is involved, and this is throwing a fork or a wrench in the whole thing. So, let me give you just a little bit of background info to how we got there. This is the part where, like, on last episode, this is what happened
we left
previously.
a little teaser.
So what has previously been happening is that, as we all know, the president has been pressuring the chair of the Fed to lower interest rates since the president took office early last year, right? Every single time the Fed meets and there's a decision, there's a tweet about it. The nickname for this administration was Too Late Powell. They want interest rates lower. And as a function of this political pressure, the administration has been going after certain members of the Federal Reserve Board, including like Lisa Cook. And then there was, I forgot the name, but it was a professor at Georgetown in DC that was on the Fed for a short period of time and decided to resign. All of that because of political pressure. But the biggest one of them all was a probe into Jerome Powell himself, because they were renovating the actual building for the Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C., and it was costing around $5 billion. And they were like, why is it costing that much? We think there is corruption. We're coming at it. Obviously, when you're getting free money from the government, you're going to splurge and you're going to. So it is more political than it is. It's not like someone put the money in their pocket. They're just overspending and not caring for taxpayer money, but they didn't steal it. So this went to the Supreme Court. It's the president versus the chair of the Federal Reserve. And all of that is we still have a pending case that we don't have a verdict on so far about, the issue with the money spent on that Federal Reserve building. So here, it's really stopped being a case on whether the law was broken and more of a pawn in a political game between the president and the chair of the Federal Reserve.
Can we just put him in the boxing ring? Can we just settle this old school?
Yeah, I think we've covered this before, but have you seen, he's a great representative of all the nerds, Jerome Powell is, right? So he's skinny, he's short, and I don't think he can handle a bunch.
Yeah. We have talked about this, but I just feel like nowadays boxing, these YouTube stars and whatnot are getting in the box room with all these like ex-athletes. It's like, let's just take this to politics, to Washington, D.C. and let Trump fight Powell and just see what happens.
Didn't you want to put a fighting ring in the garden behind the White House at some point for a UFC fight?
Did I?
No, the president.
I think he's doing that. I think there's a fight coming up at the White House. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he just rolls out when he fight. That's like the main card there. Who knows? You never know.
The country's at war, and this is what we care about.
Yeah.
Here we go.
This is what happens. Yep.
So, what happens is that with that case pending, Jerome Powell is really trying to cover his back. So he's saying, when Warsh comes in, I will leave and give him the spot because he was assigned by the president. But for Warsh to come in, he has to be confirmed by the Senate. And there is a senator at the Senate, and his name is Senator Thom Tillis, a Republican from North Carolina. He said that he will hold up the nomination in the Senate Banking Committee for Kevin Warsh until a Justice Department probe into the remodeling of the Federal Reserve is resolved. So what the senator is saying, this is really bad for the Fed independence. Right? This really looks like it's political pressure. I will not continue the process and help appoint Kevin Warsh, the new chair of the Federal Reserve,
until we resolve that.
It is resolved with the previous central banker. I do not know whether there's a relationship between the senator and the current Fed chair, or why is he doing it truly for, out of principle that we want the Fed to be independent? Are they good buddies? I have no idea. It's not saying on the media. But now what it's saying, it's more of a tick for tack. You want to screw me over and you have a case against me with the Supreme Court. Well, the Senate is helping me block the appointment of the new Fed chair that you want. So it's really political. And
can I ask you a question, Rabih?
Yes.
And maybe you don't know this, but I'm curious, like, what's the end game here? Like, the Supreme Court is evaluating whether this $5 billion was justified or not.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they say it's not. Let's say that's the judgment. So then what? Like, they got to pay it back? Is Jay Powell in trouble? This is what I'm curious about. It's like, it just feels like, okay, it's at the Supreme Court. They're going to make a determination, and then what?
I do not know what the verdict might be, right? But it seems to be slightly of significance because as of the statement that Jerome Powell answered on the question yesterday, it seems like he wants to cover his back. So let me tell you exactly what he said. So, he said, quote, on the question whether I will leave while the investigation is ongoing, I have no intention of leaving the board until the investigation is well and truly over with transparency and finality. He's saying his term as a Fed and as a chair ends in May. But he, on the board of the governor, out of the 12 people on the open market committee, his term doesn't end for 2 years, right? So he's
going to stay on the committee.
He said, I'm not going to. The precedent has been that once you finish as a chair, you just leave, even if you have more days left in your term as a general member of the committee, not the chair. He's saying, I'm not leaving. I'm not following that precedent until that is resolved. So it seems like on a personal level, he's trying to protect his back, right? And on the other one, he said, on the question of whether I will then continue to serve as the governor after my term ends and after the investigation is over, I have not made that decision yet, and I will make that decision based on what I think is best for the institution and for the people we serve, end quote. So until Kevin Warsh is in, he's staying as a chair of the Federal Reserve. And even when Kevin Warsh is in, he's not leaving as a normal member of the committee until the probe into the central bank building is resolved. So Jerome Powell is not leaving. But
so good news for Rabih. Good news for gonna hold off on that Nutella.
Gonna hold off on that Nutella. Hopefully he stays until winter season comes back, because now we need the beach bod.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is now that this is really more political than it is really about the economics and where monetary policy should be heading and in which direction it should be heading. Trump would not like Jerome Powell to stay because that is one less seat for him to skew the votes in his liking, aka lower interest rates across the next couple of months, or as long as Warsh is in office. Where does this leave us? More uncertainty than we started with. And that is why the market really didn't like the news that
I saw
we
that.
do not know what is going to happen. We have a process, we've got laws, we've got procedures. Why not follow them? Why do we have to have this small political battle in between? But the US is, in its whole history, is all about the separation of power and the balance between these powers and how they fight it out within the institutions that prolongs and preserves this union that we have with all its branches of power. So it's just a new episode of the story of this country trying to balance power. But it's an unfortunate event, right? Like, out of all that's happening in the economy right now, and we're going to get to it in a second, where inflation is, where unemployment is, the impact of the war, do we really need this on our plate? That is the vibe. So,
I mean, I don't know, Rabih. Apparently, I had just heard. I don't know if you heard the news. I know you're plugged in. They just canceled the Bachelorette season.
I did. It was all over my social media yesterday.
Yeah, and so I think maybe this is just helping replace that with the drama. And I think they're just doing their service for the reality TV watchers. They're like, they can't get the Bachelorette. Let's watch a fight between Trump and Jay Powell.
Or Jay Powell is waiting until the probe is done. He's also giving time for network to spin up a new script for the Golden Bachelor so he can really do a quick career move.
Becomes the Golden Bachelor. Okay, now we're talking about a twist here. I like this. I like this. Yeah, no shock. I don't think that there's drama and this has become political. That's just kind of the nature of where we're at in this current environment.
Yeah.
Okay, so good news for you, at least a little bit. Jay Powell hangs around a little longer. You might be able to hold on to that new car smell a little bit more. All right, and then let's jump to the next with my energetic question of when the heck are they going to cut rates, Rabih?
It's really pertinent because it seems like they're fighting amongst each other. No one is really doing their job. Like, Warsh is waiting until he gets in. Powell's trying to protect his back, and the president is just lighting up fire on all fronts on the whole planet, right? So, like, when are they going to cut interest rates? This is what Americans care about. Gas prices are high. How does it look like?
Yeah, okay. Oil's jumped to what, 110, over 110?
Yep. Brent was at 113. By the way, this is not the highest it's ever gotten. In 1975, it's gotten to the 140 level. It got to the 130 level. Russia-Ukraine, it was in the 122 to 125 level. So we are in one of these, you can count them on your finger type of situations, but it's not the worst we've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's fine.
When it comes to oil specifically, which can, as we've highlighted, can have a significant ripple effect in the economy if it lasts too long.
100%.
Yeah.
So to start, let's hit them in this order. Let's talk about economy. Let's talk about unemployment. Let's talk about inflation, and then I'll answer your question about interest rates. Cool?
Yes.
So with the economy, we got, and this is what the Federal Reserve was saying, that Q4 GDP came in much lower. It now dropped. Our first estimate for it on an annualized term was 3.4%, right? If you annualize it. Now, if you annualize it, it's only 0.7%. So how, like, their estimates were off by 3% on a $27 trillion big economy. So that is a big change. Q1, so far where we stand, it seems like Q1 is coming at 2.3% annualized, aka we are on a trend with where we want the economy to be growing. It's not booming like it has been in the last 3 years, slowed down, but we are right on where we want it. Going below that is where we start getting warning signs, because we were drifting down toward the neutral, but from this point downwards, we're drifting away from neutral towards a slowdown recessionary territory. Okay, so there is that. The job market is in a very interesting position right now because we haven't been making any jobs for the last 5 months. 0 jobs in the economy. And this is usually the job market is in balance where you've got, and what I mean by imbalance, it means the unemployment rate is stable at like 3%. 3.5% or at 5% or 6%. Regardless of the level, it's usually stable, which means that from one month to another, that unemployment number does not fluctuate much. This happens when the economy is creating, for example, 100,000 jobs, but there's also 100,000 new job openings. People are asking for the jobs and people are getting employed. So both new workers join the labor force and new demand for work shows up. It keeps it in balance. This time, and why it's interesting, is the balance is coming where no new jobs are being created and no one's being hired. So we are at zero and still the unemployment rate is in balance. This
Kind of unique.
is unique. The Fed is saying we will wait and see, and we haven't seen this situation before, so we can't be proactive. So let us see where it leads to, and then we'll be reactive about it, which kind of hints that they are in a wait and see mode, not just Jerome Powell, but also other governors on the central bank. And the last one that we need to cover is actually inflation, right? So inflation at the core level is around, on a CPI, is close to the 3%. So what they've done, it is there. But Jerome Powell is slightly disappointed with the inflation situation. He is saying that, if I quote him exactly, he said, "We are not making as much progress as we had hoped with the inflation numbers." So they dropped it from the 9.1. Now it's in the upper 2s, low 3s. But they can't take it for that last yard where it's back to 2. And that is because they said we're back to a restrictive monetary policy. However, we had tariffs as a one-time spike, so that will delay our job. And then they said, well, on top of that, the war in Iran started, and that oil shocks or supply shock increases prices on everyone. That is inflationary. So now we got a new spike in inflation or a price level. It could be one time if the war ends tomorrow, but that one could drag on and become chronic inflation like in 2022 if it goes on. So the concern from the Federal Reserve was, when tariff came in, we said that's fine, that's a one-time shock. This oil price shock that's happening with Iran, this could either also be another one price shock, which is also going to delay our expectations and push us by a couple of months, but also it could be something that becomes chronic. And that means we relive 2022 all over again.
And it just all depends on how long this lasts.
How long it lasts, the impact of oil prices, how will that affect businesses and how they are passing on the cost to consumers? How will consumers react to higher gas prices? And probably all shipped goods are going to be more expensive. Will they go ask for raises? Will that become a vicious cycle of money not making worth its buck anymore and people asking for more money, going into an inflationary cycle? So,
well, and as we've talked about before too, with the K-shape of the economy right now, that if this impacts the market too much more and you start to see a negative spiral downwards in the stock market, then the upper end of the economy, the socioeconomic ladder, they stop spending. There's a lot of Jenga pieces that could be pulled here to take this thing down.
100%. And inflation itself does not necessarily mean that stock prices are going to go down. But whenever inflation shows up, market expectation is that the Federal Reserve will have to intervene and raise interest rates to curb down that inflation. Raising interest rates themselves are directly related to lower stock prices.
Yeah.
So probably the cure is going to be a pain at that point. Inflation shows up, the cure is interest rates, but higher interest rates is going to drop the stock market. Lower stock market prices means it hits that top 20% of consumers who are lifting the economy. That puts us into a recession. Very textbook scenario, and it happened. We wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
From our perspective, it's like, okay, readjust your long-term horizon. If your long-term horizon was 10 years, make it 12 or 13. Because now there's a portion of the business cycle that you have to endure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With that, after all this going back and forth, it tells you that they are less enthusiastic about cutting interest rates just because these higher prices create inflationary pressure and the labor market is stable, although it is stable with no jobs being created. Right now, the Federal Reserve is pointing out to a one cut this year. This was their communication since January, December, right? Right. They haven't changed their expectation. They still think that they're only going to cut by one cut this year. The market expectations, though, if we go to the Fed funds rate, the market does not think that they're going to cut interest rates this
At
year
all.
anymore.
Oh, interesting.
At all. However, if we know anything, is that the market changes its opinion so quickly. So next time they meet, April 29th, if Warsh is in office, or the meeting right after that in June, if Warsh is in office, we're going to listen to what Warsh has to say. And if Warsh comes in with big, bold statements, the expectations for interest rate cuts are going to shift as fast as oil prices are jumping right now.
Wow.
So it's a wait and see part of a month. The market hasn't, we're only 5% down from the high, by the way. All this mess.
Yeah, and the
We're
S&P,
only
I saw
5%
that.
down from the high. This is nothing. We usually don't talk about it.
Well, what's funny too, Rabih, just real quick on that, we talk about, we just did a podcast yesterday that'll come out in a few weeks about global diversification. And I was talking to a few clients earlier this week. They were like, what's our portfolio doing? They just were curious. Our portfolios, for the most part, are flat, completely flat, because of the global diversification aspect. So the S&P in the U.S. markets, the large cap, are down roughly 4.5% year to date. So I hadn't looked until this got brought up this week, and I'm like, oh, it's actually pretty flat. Like you said, it's nothing. It's just, there's nothing to even worry about here as of right now.
Yeah, it seems like people panic. When the market is going up, stock market is going up, everyone's happy, no one's even caring about their portfolio, they're spending money. When it goes down sharp, like in Liberation Day, people panic, but also people panic when it goes sideways for a while. It's like, why is it going sideways for a while?
Yeah.
And if you just look at the S&P 500, since last August till today, like if you invested money last August in the S&P 500, or you invested money today, you're no different. The market has gone sideways for 6 months. That is normal. At least you're not losing your money, right?
Yeah.
So that is a very normal behavior from the market, but it is the media, it is the war, it is, all the politics that is making this feel worse than it is. But other than that, the markets are functioning healthily. The only thing that we are actually seeing in the market is that junk bonds and private credit markets, private credit lending, those are under stress. Some of them are in delinquency. The insurance on them has become more expensive. These are all recessionary signs, but it's still early. This is the only kind of small fire we're seeing in this investment landscape. One last thing, because before we end this whole conversation about the Fed, is the worry that a stagflation would come back, right? Because we're saying the economy is slowing down, although it's stable right now, but unemployment is high, but also inflation might be coming back because of this oil shock and the tariff shock, etc. And there was a statement about it. And the statement about it is, and I'm just going to quote what Jerome Powell said, because that is really, I found it very helpful. Quote, I always have to point out that the stagflation term was a 1970s term, at the time when unemployment was in double figures and inflation was high. Right now, unemployment is 4.4% and inflation is 3%, right? It's not double figures anywhere. We actually have an unemployment really close to longer run normal, and we have inflation that's 1 percentage point above that. I would reserve the term stagflation for a much more serious set of circumstances. So it's a tough position, but it's not a big problem position. We have to, you sprained your ankle, you didn't break your leg. Type of place.
I think a lot of that's the result of, we've talked about this in the past, where the media loves to take a step back. The media is interested in one thing, which is your attention and getting clicks. And it's really easy to get clicks. Like the cheapest way to get clicks is since 2008, or, this is like 1970s, like comparing it to some historical figure or historical time. And it's really easy to say this one factor is just like this time period, but it's like, oh, but the other billion other factors has nothing to do with that, what happened then. So again, it's just, as we talk about on the show, navigating the noise and realizing, and I'm glad you just brought that up, Rabih, that this is nowhere close to 1970. There may be some things that rhyme, because that's just how life goes, but it doesn't mean that this is even remotely close to what happened then.
Anyone living in the 1970s would kill to be living in these days.
Yep, exactly. Okay, that was a good summary. Anything else you want to add?
No, to be continued. We got Powell for an extra month. That's all I care about.
Yeah, that is the theme of the show. Is Rabih gets Powell for a little longer?
I'm kidding. It's really about trying to form your own narrative, right? Like what we're trying to do here. The reason that we're going over the fact and the numbers together again is because if you're not thinking for yourself and trying to figure out how does this narrative think into a long-term perspective, how do I cancel the other voices and find my own inner voice in making analysis about the situation, you're going to be swayed and taken and forced to look in where the media wants you to look. So this is really what we talk about, navigating the noise. Navigating the noise wouldn't be, hey, I'm going to shut my TV and not listen to it, or I'm going to not care about my portfolio and never touch it and actually work suboptimally. Navigating the noise would be you do an active effort to understand what's happening and work with someone towards a long-term investment strategy.
Yeah, controlling what you can control. To that point, Rabih, this actually, it's funny. We did that podcast yesterday with that client case study, and I thought about this a lot last night. And when I was laying in bed, because that's what I do, because we're nerds. But I thought about this exact thing where we mentioned there that we talk so much about like core principles, right? And which is the foundation of what you're supposed to focus on. So things like your business, increasing your cash flow, controlling your spending, setting up the right accounts, and controlling your behavior. These things all matter and should be a main focus for sure. But what really hit me last night when we were talking about when we were doing that podcast, and what you just referenced again, is that it doesn't mean that optimization doesn't matter. It absolutely does, and it can actually cost you by not being optimal in things like proper diversification and the proper asset location and allocate, all these things. It does matter. And as we were reviewing that specific case, and as we talk about this stuff on the show all the time, I'm like, no, this stuff actually, like this can actually have a meaningful impact by doing this the right way and having the right exposure to the right assets and things like that. So I thought about that last night around us bringing that up more around, again, proper sequencing. But when you get to this optimal level or optimization level, like it still very much does matter. So awesome, Rabih. Great summary as always. Let's pivot really to the last, as we close this out, to the last question. We'll pivot into dentistry. Weird, because we talk to dentists. We work with dentists. Are dentists ready to manage a business? First thing I'll start with before we jump into these figures is I'd say they absolutely will be ready to manage a business if they come to the Dentist Money Summit in Midway.
100%.
What do you think?
100%.
I think so. The theme this year being practice on your terms, a lot of it around leadership, managing your business. So you should probably come hang out with us in June 11th through the 13th, Midway, Utah, dentistmoneysummit.com. Did you like that, Rabih? Did you see how I did that?
You're a pro. You're an expert.
Okay, so we wanted to jump into, we found, and I'll shout out Becky, one of the backbones of the business, kind of behind the scenes. She's amazing, and she sent us something she found from the ADEA, the American, let me find this, let me get it right, the American Dental Education Association. They did a 2005 survey of U.S. dental school seniors. And there was actually some interesting data here that I thought was worth talking about and highlighting some things, a couple of things that stood out. So let me first just kind of give a couple of highlights. They talk about like how ready are they when they come out of school? How ready do they feel in certain areas of schooling or like being a dentist? They talk about their career, where they're headed. Do they want to go into private practice ownership or not? And then they surveyed their debt, their actual debt loads. And there's some data from 2024 and 2025 that I thought was super interesting. So let me start with this. This actually was, I don't know if I'd say surprising, but I was like, this is actually pretty significant. So let's start first with the debt. So they surveyed in 2024 and then in 2025, two things: their average dental school debt specifically, and then their just average total debt. So it peaked in 2024. So, and actually they go back even further. So in 2021, the average education debt total was 293. The average dental school debt was 280, which tells me there was very, very, obviously very minimal
Yeah.
debt, pre dental school debt. It went up barely in 2022, and then it went up a little bit more in 2023. It really jumped in 2024. So in 2024, those surveyed, average dental school debt went to 297, and overall total education debt went to 312. And then in 2025, dropped significantly. It dropped back to those levels pre 2024. So average dental school debt down to 280, and the overall education debt down to 297.
So there is an upward trend, but in 2024 we had an outlier, which
spike.
is so much higher, and then we reverted back to the trend in 2025.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I wish I had an answer. Maybe someone listening will be like, "Oh yeah, duh, because of this." I don't have an answer to that as to like why there was this huge spike in 2024, but it's significant. You look at the chart, it jumps quite a bit.
I have a
Like 20,000.
hypothesis. 2024, there was a lot of changes with like the plans. Remember, we've got Jake and Taylor come on the podcast and talk about it.
Yep.
Could it have to do with like the loans transferred from one company to another and like interest was recalculated and then the interest was taken out of, and it's just on paper?
For sure. I think it very well could be that. You're talking about like capitalizing the interest as they go to refinance. Very well could be that for sure. What's interesting, so yes, I don't have data on like did refinances spike in 2024. It wouldn't be shocking if it did, because we've actually had some pretty favorable rates over the last couple of years. It's kind of gone up and down, but on the private lending side for dental schools, for education refinancing, it's actually been pretty reasonable. So I think that is a reasonable hypothesis for sure, as to maybe, like you said, capitalization of that interest that bumped up. What's interesting though is I would still imagine, this is purely anecdotal, but that a lot of dentists still, even in 2024, we're still very much in a holding pattern. And so it just is surprising to me, just based on the conversations we've had. I would just think that everyone was still holding, kind of like standing pat. Maybe we'll have to present this to Jake and Taylor, kind of our resident experts, and they'll probably have an opinion on this, and we can bring it back next week. But that was interesting. Another thing here was, let me jump to a couple of other things. I'm going to turn off that phone call here. Okay. So a couple of other things here. They talked about your where you want to head with your career as far as like coming out of school. 50% of the graduating class said they are planning on entering private practice ownership.
50%.
Does that seem high or low to you?
It's a coin toss, right? I think it's low. I think if I don't know, from my perspective, if I'm gonna go through the pain of a dental school, I would want to maximize my long-term prospects for a higher net worth. And I'm working hard in that school, so why wouldn't I work hard to becoming a business owner?
Yeah.
So I would like it to be higher, just from my perspective.
Would too.
Yeah,
I would too. Very much would like that to be higher. And what we have found, and what data shows, is that a lot of dentists are coming out of school and going the DSO route at first to get their feet underneath them. It feels safer at first. I don't blame them for that. And then a lot of time, we talk to a lot of dentists who are in that DSO space for a while. Again, safe, insulated place to work on hand speed and just learning the ropes. And then a lot of times they jump from there to private practice ownership. There's nothing wrong with that. I kind of did something similar in some ways when it comes to my career, working for like a big company for several years and then kind of jumping ship to a smaller, that kind of thing. So there's nothing wrong with that. I think that actually can work really well. But I agree with you. I would overall want that number to be higher, because we firmly believe in private practice ownership as the clearest path to financial freedom and a fulfilling life as a dentist. Another thing that I thought was worth noting: timing of decision to pursue the career of dentistry. I thought this was really cool. In 2021, they have the data back then, it was 50% of those who said they went into dentistry chose it before college. Mm-hmm. So in high school or sometime before college, they had decided they wanted to be in dentistry. In 2025, that's held pretty much the same. 47% of those going into dentistry said that they selected it before college, which is cool. I just thought that was kind of interesting, that half the dentists are saying, like, kind of knew they were going to do it before. And then the next largest cohort of this, and it's been roughly the same since 2021 and 2025. The next group was about 25-ish% said they decided after their first 2 years of college. So 75% of dentists is what it tells us is deciding either before college or sometime right as they're, halfway through college. So kind of interesting. The most interesting, I want to hit this, is talking about where the preparedness to practice. So how prepared are you to practice coming out of dental school? And every single thing was 91% or higher. And I'll read the categories except for two. And so I'll show you. So ethical professional standards, 98% said they are prepared. They agree or strongly agree that they are prepared. Basic skills and clinical decision-making, 98%. Communication skills, 98%. CE, 98%. Management of common conditions, 97%. Working with diverse staff and or patients, 97%. Clinical skills to begin practicing general dentistry, 94%. Individuals with special needs, 92%. Legal and regulatory context, 91%. Here's where it drops on these two categories. The next one is still pretty high. Leading a successful team, only 90% said they were, which again, still high. Yep. I think that one, I'm going to say the dentists who are in mid-career right now or own a practice would probably be like, oh, good luck with that one, guys. You're a little bit naive on that one. But 90% said they are prepared to lead a successful team. And then management of a successful business, only 62%.
Whoa.
That one was a significant drop, which this does not shock me whatsoever that they're feeling like this. And I really do think that even getting into ownership, that number drops even more. That's what overwhelms people. The two areas we feel or we hear from most dentists who struggle or that have stress, and there's a lot of things coming at them, a lot of the culprits are leadership and then just the overall management of the business. Like, as we're highlighting here, 98% is across the board on the clinical side. School prepares you for that. What school doesn't prepare you for is actual business ownership and managing the intricacies of that and a team. That's the hard part. Any thoughts on this, Rabih?
No, I love that you said that. And it's not really about the person. It's the school doesn't prepare you for that. And learning how to run a business is not something that you just learn in school, right? You can learn about how to take out a root canal all you want on PowerPoints and videos, but unless you do it with your hand, you're not going to learn how to do it. That's why dental school is more hands-on experience. The same thing with running a business. It's not like, oh, dental school is bad. Even if you go and get a business degree, you're not going to learn how to run a business, right?
Yep. I can testify to that.
You have to get your hands dirty to learn how to run a business. And that is tough, and it's a steep learning curve. And, this is where Dentist Advisor actually comes in, because it's a need. You need to figure out how to run a business. The traditional educational routes do not provide that support. You either do it or yourself, or you find an alternative way to learn the skills to be able to do it. And that's why we've got amazing people like Christine on our company, where we're helping with business consulting, trying to help the dentists do so well at their business that the rest of their life, financial planning and investment management, become a walk in a park. Right.
Yeah.
So this is a feature of how the educational infrastructure is built, and the hard reality of running a business. You don't have to do it alone. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, such a good point, Rabih. And I'm actually really glad to see these numbers, that these dentists, because at their core, they're clinicians, right? Like, that's a huge part of what they do. And it's really great to see that the education system is working, that they feel confident that they can come out and be clinicians and do their job of like making sure that people are healthy and that they're doing a good job that way. But to your point, it's impossible to say that you're going to be that confident and that prepared as a clinician and also be that prepared to run a business. To your point, that's where I think we advocate so much of getting help. And it doesn't say this, Rabih. They didn't obviously put this question in here, but I would imagine if there was some level of a question around how confident are you to manage the money you're going to make in dentistry, right, throughout your career, and understand how the flow of money works in that business and what to do with it and how to optimize it, as we talked about. I would imagine that, given true sermon, most of these dentists coming out would be below 50%. I would imagine, quite low of them feeling confident of what to do with their money. And we know this because we survey dentists, we talk to the dentists every single day, and when they talk to us, almost always there's some iteration of, I'm making money now and I don't know what to do. I know I'm making money. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know where it's going. I need help with the flow of my cash. We hear this. I need to know, is it better to pay it towards debt? Is it better to invest it? Where do I invest it? All these questions. And so we know this is something that's on dentists' mind.
100%. It's not a hypothesis. We're a successful business. We make money out of this, right?
Yep.
We are actually finding the proof from the market. There are other dentists who are finding value and learning how to run a better practice, in knowing and learning about how they should manage their money and align them with their goals, or else dentist advisors wouldn't even exist, right? So this is
we wouldn't have been around for almost 20 years now. 100%. It's a great point. We are the living testament to this being a core issue for dentists that we're trying to help solve. And so there's a lot of ways we do that. I would say if you're out there listening and hearing these and you're like, yeah, I fit into that category of coming out of school, or I'm out of school, I'm an associate, or I'm just started my practice, or I want to buy a practice, and I'm struggling with these questions around management of business, managing my money, investing. That's, to Rabih's point, that's what we're here for. That's what we do. That's why we've been around for almost 20 years. And we'd love to talk to you. We'd love to help you understand the ways that we can help bring value to your life. You can go to dentistadvisors.com, book a free consultation button, talk to one of our friendly advisors. It'd be well worth your time. Worst case scenario is you're going to learn something, is our goal on those consultations. So dentistadvisors.com, like we mentioned, we'd love to have you at the summit, dentistmoneysummit.com. Check it out. Come listen to Cash GPT. Come meet our team. Come hang out with like-minded dentists in a beautiful place. Golf, ride some side-by-sides in the mountains. It's going to be a great time. We'd love to have you there. For now, Rabih, thanks for being here. Everyone, thanks for listening. If you're still listening, you're one of the cool ones. We appreciate you. That was our 2 cents. Till next time. Bye-bye.